بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. صدق الله العظيم. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: الصوم جنة. Alhamdulillah, brothers and sisters, as the month of Ramadan is drawing near, month of barakah, month of blessings, and actually a month of training. It's a spiritual training. And to understand the meaning of this fast deeper, we should see, inshallah, what we want to do is see in particular what was the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this Mubarak month. And one of the most amazing books and one of the most, I think, superior books in regards to the sunnah of the Prophet and the seerah of the Prophet is the book called Zadul Ma'ad fi Hadi Khayr al-Ibad of Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala. So those of you who know Arabic, those are students of Arabic language, inshallah, please, this is one of the books that definitely, you should find it, you should read it, you should study it. And it has been written in an amazing way that it brings together so many, angles of the life of the Prophet, of the sunnah of the Prophet, of understanding the sharia from the lens of the seerah, right? Of understanding the entire deen of Islam from the lens of the seerah. And this is something so essential and so important in the day and age that we live in, because people try to understand the sharia from their own lens. They try to understand the Quran from their own lens, from their own perspective. But the interesting thing about this book is it's understanding entirety of Islam from the lens of the seerah of the Prophet, from the life of the Prophet. And this is something really, really essential. If you truly want to know Islam, you have to look at it from the perspective of the Prophet ﷺ. That's true Islam. True Islam is the Islam of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wala Amr Zayd wala Bakr. So this is what's the most interesting thing about this book of Seerah, is that it goes to the various different aspects and different angles and different perspectives of all the various different, commandments, whether it's salat, whether it's zakat, whether it's hajj, and whether it's saum. And one of the most profound, you can say, definitions of saum, of fasting, I have seen in this book. Yani the way that he explains, and you can say that just one page, how he explains fasting from the prophetic perspective, it's profound. So inshallah, I want to read from this. And those of you who know Arabic, subhanallah, you'll see the beauty, how eloquent this is, and how meaningful this is. And those who don't, inshallah, I will translate. So Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah has a faslun fi hadihi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam fi siyam. This is the section regarding the prophetic way of fasting. What was the hadiyun Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam fi siyam? فيقول العلامة الشيخ الحافظ ابن قيم رحمه الله: لما كان المقصود من الصيام حبس النفس عن الشهوات وفطامها عن المألوفات وتعديل قوتها الشهوانية لتستعد لطلب ما فيه غاية سعادتها ونعيمها وقبول ما تزكو به مما فيه حياتها الأبدية ويكسر الجوع والظمأ من حدتها وسورتها ويذكرها بحال الأكباد الجائعة من المساكين وتضيق مجاري الشيطان من العبد بتضييق مجاري الطعام والشراب. And he continues, but he says, look, the objective of fasting is, number one, حبس النفس عن الشهوات, that you discipline the nafs from its desires, right? Some of the ulama explain that the example of the nafs and the soul is like the rider, like the donkey, the rakib and the markab. the donkey and its rider. So the nafs, that's the donkey, and you are the rider. So throughout the entire year, sometimes this donkey, it's pulling us in a direction and taking us to places we don't want to be. So you have to see, is your donkey riding you or you're riding the donkey? Which one? The one who his nafs is controlling him, then it's the example of that is that you're carrying the donkey on your back. You understand? And the donkey is controlling you. So one of the objectives of this is habsun nafs. It's to, right, get the reins of the lower self, to hold on to the reins of the lower self so that you're able to, you be the, rider, and the nafs be subservient to you. And وَفِطَامَهَا عَنِ الْمَأْلُوفَاتِ, and that you're weaning the nafs. You're separating the nafs from the things that it's become accustomed to. We become accustomed to certain things. First thing we do when we wake up in the morning, right? First thing, look at the phone. Last thing, look at the phone. Ma'lufat, those things, alifahan nafs, the things that the nafs have become accustomed to. This is fitamuha anil ma'lufat. Fasting is supposed to do what? It's supposed to wean you away, like you wean a child. النفس كالطفل إن تتركه شب على حب الرضاء وإن تفطمه ينفطم. This nafs is like a child, always wants to suckle from the mother. Even if it becomes 2 years old, 3, 4, 5, if it doesn't get separated from the mother's breast, constantly it wants to go until you do fitam, you wean it. And you wean the child. And weaning the child is not easy. The child is going to cry, the child is going to scream, but the mother has to wean that child, otherwise it's going to continue to want to drink the milk from the breast of the mother. So the second objective, as Shaykh is mentioning, وَفِطَامَهَا عَنِ الْمَأْلُوفَاتِ. You have to wean yourself. Find what are the things that you have become accustomed to. And it doesn't have to be haram. Things that are just not good habits. There is nothing which is a worse habit than our phones. This is the number one thing that in this month of Ramadan, everybody should make a point of disconnecting yourself, checking only the necessary calls at a certain time of the day, but throughout the day, keep it away from you and focus on Quran, focus on being with yourself, not being attached to the phone constantly. Wallahi, I used to think like, maybe the month of Ramadan, I am going to be, at ease. I'm not going to have to answer the calls of people. Wallahi, in the month of Ramadan, I get more issues. As the month of Ramadan comes closer, I get more issues, I get more problems, I get more attachments to the phone. And it's an ajib thing because the shayateen are locked up, but the nafs is not locked up. The month of Ramadan is actually for the nafs. And the nafs is our biggest enemy because the ulama have explained, when there was no shaitan for Adam, right? What was the thing that led shaitan astray? There was no shaitan for shaitan. There was no shaitan for shaitan. What led shaitan astray? It was his nafs. It was his ego. It was his kibr. Aba wastakbara wa kana min al-kafirin. So these ma'lufat, kathratul ishtighal bil ma'lufat, right? What happens? Tufdi ila al-haram. Kathratul ishtighal bil ma'lufat wal mandubat tufdi ila al-haram. The ulama have explained that these too much involvement in just random things. Oh, I'm just da'wah and just da'wah on TikTok. I'm just looking at da'wah at this and I'm looking at da'wah on YouTube and I'm just, what happens? Takes you to, it's mandub, it's halal, it's okay. But too much of that makes you fall into what? It makes you then fall into the haram. So every one of us knows, we know ourselves better than anyone else. Wallahi, brothers and sisters, I tell you, it is so hard for people to even, have an attention span nowadays. It's so difficult. The attention span of the crowd has become like 5-minute, 10-minute attention span. This is how much these phones, have ruined us. Tell a person to read a book. People are not able to read a book. I was telling one, mashallah, he's a graduate from Dar al-Ulum Karachi. He's a student of Mufti Taqi and, very erudite, mashallah, scholar. He's a Sunni living in Iran. So I told him, Maulvi Sahib, you should work on the sharh of, one of these books. So look at his answer. He says, the scholars in my locality are saying people don't read anymore. We need to focus on putting our bayans, recording bayans, and putting them on TikTok and YouTube and Twitter. These are ulama. What I'm telling him, subhanallah, some of the fiqh books that are in Urdu and Arabic, you should put them in Farsi, so that the Farsi community can benefit from it. He says, the ulama around that I've told them that these are some of the books that I'm working on, he said, people don't read anymore. Ma'lufat. These harmful things. Reading a book, subhanallah, people used to gather to read books with mashayikh. This was the tradition in Islam, gathering to read the books of the mashayikh, of the ulama, of the awliya. Now what happens, subhanallah, who reads anymore? Nobody sits for ta'lim. Nobody sits for a dars. If you tell people there's a dars of such and such a book, people not going to come. If you say there's a party, if you say there's a family night and after there's going to be food, and then you see the doors of the masjid start breaking by the hinges. The hinges are going to break off when you know that there's langar. The langar is going to be there. There's going to be food, and there's going to be entertainment, and there's going to be a clown. He's going to be dancing for everybody. Then everybody is going to come. But if you say, subhanallah, we're going to study, Zadul Ma'ad, or we're going to study Sahih al-Bukhari, or we're going to study nobody wants to come. And this is the reality. What has done this to us? Ma'lufat. We have made ourselves lazy. Tell people, go out in the path of Allah. So difficult to take people out because ma'lufat. So the month of Ramadan is actually fitamuha anil ma'lufat. It takes you out of the things that you just get habituated. You get used to. You get used to sleeping in. You get used to not performing salah with jama'ah. You get used to eating every second, every minute. You don't need to eat every minute, right? This is called snacking. This is harmful. Anytime you feel hungry, okay, I gotta stuff my stomach with chips because I just got a sudden feeling of hunger. Let yourself be in a state of hunger. Now the doctors are saying it's good for you to be in a state of hunger. Human beings, for a large portion of humanity and history and civilization, most of the time they were hungry. Human beings. They weren't full all the time. We think that some young people think that anytime you have a sudden sense of hunger, quickly, at no moment should you even have the sensation of hunger. Even that sensation of hunger for even 5 minutes is haram. It's okay. This is what fasting teaches us. وَهُوَ شَهْرُ الصَّبْرِ. It's a month that teaches us patience. It's a month that disconnects us from these things that we've just become habituated to. The phone, it's like a it's a attachment. It's attached to my hand. It's a part of my right hand. Subhanallah. First thing we do when we wake up is look at it, and last thing we do before we go to sleep, we look at it. This is a big problem. This has messed us up big time. And especially these social media applications, Facebook and X and God knows all these other masa'ib, musibat. This is musibat. These are the destroyers of taqwa. These are the destroyers of the anwarat of dhikr. When you read Quran, when you make salah, when you fast, then there is a nur inside of the heart. وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُ نُورًا. Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُ نُورًا. Allah gives everybody a light. When you make dhikr, Allah increases your light. When you recite Quran, Allah gives you light. When you fast, Allah gives you light. These are anwar, these are nur. But when you do all of these things, you're looking at these, what you're not supposed to look at. We look at haram things. Our eyes fall upon haram things, then that nur goes away. When we listen to those things, when we spend time with those things, this diminishes the light of our dhikr. It diminishes the light of our Quran. So not only should you be doing the good acts, you should be preserving the nur and the blessings. Not only do the good acts, but stay away from the bad acts, so that the anwarat and the blessings of your worship can be preserved. Otherwise, everybody is praised and everybody recites Quran and everybody is fasting, but what happens? The blessings and the nur and the thawab, all of it is going away. Like, when you have a window open, you turn on the heater, but you have a window open, and the cold air is coming inside, the house is not going to get warm because the window is open. Similarly, when the window of the eyes is open, and the window of the ears is open, and the window of the tongue is open, and you have the heater on, your adhkar, your awrad, your Quran, your zikr, all these things you're doing, the window is open. You're not going to get warm. All the air, all the anwarat is escaping. You need to close it. One of the mashayikh said, Chishim bando, gosh bando, lab band, gar nabini noori haq bar man bikhand. چشمت از گناه بند کو، گوشت از گناه بند کو، زبانت از گناه بند کو، و اگر نور خدا را در قلب خود ندیدی باز خنده کو سرم. چشم بند و گوش بند و لب بند، گر نبینی نور حق بر من بخند. Close your eyes from evil, and close your ears from evil, and close your tongue from evil. And if you don't see the light of Allah in your heart, then laugh at me. You will see the light of Allah. Why? You will, because you've collected and you've preserved your anwarat. Don't waste your anwarat. Don't diminish your light. One of the du'as Allah has taught us in the Quran is, Atmim lana nurana. Atmim lana nurana. Oh Allah, perfect our light. Perfect my light. How does your light become perfect? Your light becomes perfect by preserving that light through taqwa. Through taqwa Allah Azza wa Jal. Every person on the day of judgment, he will stand with his own light. يوم ترى المؤمنين والمؤمنات يسعى نورهم بين أيديهم وبأيمانهم بشراكم اليوم جنات. Every person will come with their nur. Ibn Kathir rahimahullah says some people's nur will be equal to his fingernail. Some people's nur will just be in front of his face, right here by his toes. Some people's nur will be on their right sides. Some people's nur will be from the heavens to the earth to the heavens. And what diminishes our nur is these haram, kathratul ma'asi, evil glances, listening to what is inappropriate, seeing what is inappropriate, speaking what is inappropriate. This is what diminishes our nur. Imagine a tank, a water tank. When you're fasting, it's like taking, at the end of your iftar, it's like you take a gallon of water and you put it inside your tank. You pray Taraweeh, you take another 2 gallons, you put it inside the tank. You made dua, you read Quran, you take another 2 gallons, put it inside the tank. But imagine if you take a nail and you make a small hole on the bottom of the tank. You have a small hole and you put it on the bottom of the tank. Now what's happening? You're collecting the water. What's happening to the water? It's leaking. You got a leak. Now all the water you collected, all the anwarat, all the barakat, all the thawab, all the ajr, what's happening? Through the eyes, through zina al-ayni al-nazar. The Prophet ﷺ in hadith of Bukhari, zina of the eyes is evil glances. Haram, the haram glance, lustful glance. What's happening? It's like that hole in your tank. So more important than keep on putting the water is what? Close the holes. Close the holes. So this is what's important, that we have to, in this Mubarak month of Ramadan, close the holes so that the anwarat and the blessings and the nur and the barakah, we preserve it. Otherwise, our fast is like the fast of, take a rabbit or a dog or a cat, lock it up in a cage, don't give it food till morning. It's fasting. Al-imsak an al-ta'ami wa-sharabi wa-shahwa. What is fasting? To not eat food, drink, and not have any relation. So you take a dog or a cat or a rabbit, you lock it up in a cage and don't give it food, water, or anything, and then iftari time, then give it food. MashaAllah. Allahumma laka sumtu wa ala rizqika aftartu. Ya Allah, I fasted in your name. He's also fasting. That's also imsak. But the reality of this, مَنْ لَمْ يَدَعْ قَوْلَ الزُّورِ وَالْعَمَلَ بِهِ فَلَيْسَ لِلَّهِ حَاجَةٌ فِي أَنْ يَدَعَ طَعَامَهُ وَشَرَابَهُ. The one who does not leave evil speech and acting on evil speech, Allah has no need for his hunger and thirst. This hadith is a usul. This hadith is a principle that Allah Azza wa Jal's objective with fasting is not hunger and thirst. Allah does not want us to be hungry. Allah does not want us to be thirsty. مَا يَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ بِعَذَابِكُمْ. What does Allah want from you? To be hungry? To be thirsty? This is the objective. This is the usul. مَنْ لَمْ يَدَعْ قَوْلَ الزُّورِ وَالْعَمَلَ بِهِ فَلَيْسَ لِلَّهِ حَاجَةٌ فِي أَنْ يَدَعَ طَعَامَهُ وَشَرَابَهُ. The one who does not guard himself from evil speech and acting on evil speech, yani acting in evil, inappropriate manner, Allah does not need his hunger and thirst. Allah is not in need of his hunger and thirst. So, this is the maqasid, this is the objective of the fasting that Ibn Qayyim, وَتَعْدِيلَ قُوَّتِهَا الشَّهْوَانِيَّةِ, and it balances your desires of the lower self. And all of this is needed لِتَسْتَعِدَّ لِطَلَبِ مَا فِيهِ غَايَةُ سَعَادَتِهَا وَنَعِيمِهَا. Because a person will never be able to attain success and bliss in the akhirah except through guarding himself from his shahawat. And a person will never be able to attain success without cutting oneself off from these bad habits. And a person will never be able to attain success unless a person has control over their shahawat. وَيَكْسِرَ الْجُوعُ وَالظَّمَأُ مِنْ حِدَّتِهَا وَسَوْرَتِهَا. And another thing, that hunger and thirst breaks the viciousness and the control of the nafs over a person. And fasting, يُذَكِّرُهَا بِحَالِ الْأَكْبَادِ الْجَائِعَةِ مِنَ الْمَسَاكِينَ. And the fasting reminds us of the empty stomachs of those who are the poor. Subhanallah, we will be fasting in the month of Ramadan and we have our suhoor and we have our iftar, but our brothers and sisters in Gaza, what are they going through? Remind yourself of them. This is the muraqabah that you should make. The muraqabah that we should have at the time of fasting is to remember our brothers and sisters and children and mothers and sisters who are in such a state, Allahu Akbar, that the heart rips to pieces seeing them. When you feel that pain and when you want to complain, remind yourself of the brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers of Gaza. Remind yourself, this is the muraqabah you should be making when you're fasting, that when you want to complain, and when you feel, oh, I'm so hungry. Yeah, you're hungry for a couple of hours. They're hungry and they don't know when they're going to get their next meal. You're hungry now and you're cooking from 12 o'clock all the way to iftari time. Isn't it? From the morning, from suhoor, you're telling your wife, oh, make sure you cook this for palau jurkuni. Palau jurkuni. Make palau for iftari today. Right? From suhoor, we're already planning iftar. Subhanallah al-azim. From suhoor, we're planning iftar. For 4 months. Our brothers and sisters, subhanallah. So my point being is, This is an amazing point that he's saying. يُذَكِّرُهَا بِحَالِ الْأَكْبَادِ الْجَائِعَةِ مِنَ الْمَسَاكِينَ. This is reminding us. So, by Allah's fadl, alhamdulillah that the fast of Ramadan, we should be doing it. This is a fard, we have to. But the least that we can do when we are in a state of fast and when we feel hungry and whenever we want to complain and whenever we want to moan and groan, remind yourself that there are those who you're moaning and groaning and you're moaning and groaning while you cook. And their stomachs are empty and they don't know when they're going to get their next meal. وَتَضِيقُ مَجَارِ الشَّيْطَانِ مِنَ الْعَبْدِ بِتَضِيقِ مَجَارِ الطَّعَامِ وَالشَّرَابِ. And actually, he says that the avenues of shaitan as they go through our veins, it becomes tightened and straightened by limiting our food and our drink. The effect of shaitan upon a person becomes less. As is mentioned in the hadith, إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ يَجْرِي فِي الْإِنسَانِ مَجْرَى الدَّمِ. The shaitan flows through us like the flowing of blood through our veins. But when a person is in hunger and when a person is thirst, shaitan does not have that power and that malaka over a person. And he says, فَهُوَ لِجَامُ الْمُتَّقِينَ وَجُنَّةُ الْمُحَارِبِينَ. This is actually the reins of muttaqeen. How they, like you have reins for a horse. These are the reins of the pious people, how they guard their nafs. وَجُنَّةُ الْمُحَارِبِينَ. And this is the shield of those who are fighting against their desires. وَرِيَاضَةُ الْأَبْرَارِ وَالْمُقَرَّبِينَ. And this is the exercise of those who are the close ones of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَهُوَ لِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ مِنْ بَيْنِ سَائِرِ الْأَعْمَالِ. And this is for Rabbul Alameen. This is for the Lord of the worlds from all our other actions. الصَّوْمُ لِي وَأَنَا أَجْزِي بِهِ. The fasting is for me and I will reward you especially for this. I will reward you especially for this. In other words, all the other deeds, they will be weighed. All the other deeds will be put upon the mizan. But the fasting, right? This is for me. Everything else will be weighed, but this one will not be weighed. إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّى الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward the patient ones innumerably. Innumerably. It will not even be counted. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the pain or the difficulty or the hunger or the thirst that a person is going through. فَإِنَّ الصَّائِمَ لَا يَفْعَلُ شَيْئًا. The fasting person is not really doing anything else except وَإِنَّمَا يَتْرُكُ شَهْوَتَهُ وَطَعَامَهُ وَشَرَابَهُ مِنْ أَجْلِ مَعْبُودِهِ. What is the fasting person doing? He's leaving his desire and he's leaving his food and he's leaving his drink for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَهُوَ تَرْكُ مَحْبُوبَاتِ النَّفْسِ وَتَلَذُّذَاتِهَا إِيثَارًا لِمَحَبَّةِ اللَّهِ وَمَرْضَاتِهِ. This is in actuality the abandoning of all the things that are beloved to us. لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. You will never attain piety and you will never attain the love of Allah until you give up what you love for the sake of Allah. Remember this. You will never attain the love of Allah until you give up what you love for what Allah loves. And we see how much, what is our level of what we have given up. SubhanAllah, we can't even give up the phone for a couple of hours. So the reality of the mahabba of Allah, Sawm is an amazing, he says, As-sawmu li, this is the meaning of As-sawmu li wa ana ajzi bihi. Some scholars have even used this meaning, wa ana ujiza bihi. Ujiza, I am the reward of this. I myself, I am your reward. There's nothing greater than that because you have preferred me over your desires. You have preferred me over your ma'lufat and mahbubat. So there is no other reward other than my mahabba, my love, myself. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah. لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. So this is a very important thing to understand for us to think, what have I given up for Allah? What thing that I have loved? What is the thing that I love most? And that's not only what we love most, but what we need most. Food and water. It's not just what we love most, it's what we need most. And this is why, subhanAllah, the fasting is a sirrun bayna al-abdi wa rabbih. Sirrun bayna al-abd wa rabbih. It is a special secret between the slave and his Lord. Special secret. Nobody knows what you're going through. Nobody knows how difficult it is. Nobody knows how thirsty you are. Nobody can actually gauge your suffering. Suffering is not something that you can gauge. Pain is not something you can gauge. It is only Allah Azza wa Jal who knows the level of sabr that each person is doing. It cannot be actually enumerated. That is why He says, إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّى الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. Allah rewards the patient ones without numeration. Right? Something like a charity, or something like a salah, and something like zakah, and something like hajj and umrah, we can see, right, if he did it right or if he did it wrong, if he fulfilled it correctly or not. But this is something that it goes deeply into, right, human psyche and the nafs. Right? When you are depriving it of its absolute essentials, its absolute necessities of life, that's when you really see, and that's when you really test a person. Sleeplessness, hunger, thirst. This is what brings out the real self. Some people ask this, Shaykh, I become so bad person in Ramadan. I become such a bad person in Ramadan. The answer to that is that you don't become a bad person. You are a bad person. That's what it is. It's just the real you is coming out. It doesn't mean you're becoming a bad person. You are a bad person. Exactly. You are a bad person. It's not that you're becoming a bad person. It's just that now when you don't have food, and you don't have water, and you don't have sleep, now the real self has come. Now we see how patient you are. Now we see how much sabr you have. Now we see how much taslim you have. Now we see how much tawakkul you have. Now we see how much habsun nafs you have when the food is taken away, and when the shahawat is taken away, and when the necessities are taken away. Now the real you. That is why they say safar. لأنه سفر. سفر means يعني انكشف. انكشف. سفر بمعنى كشف. لأن حقيقة الإنسان ينكشف عند السفر. حقيقة الإنسان ينكشف عند السفر. سفر means كشف. It means to remove. Because when you travel and when you do safar, the reality becomes apparent. Something is lifted. Your real face is lifted. Why? Because in safar and in travel, you don't get what you want. You don't get your food on time. You miss your flight. The air hostesses are, bringing you cold tea. The Wi-Fi is not working. Wallahi, I was on one flight and the Wi-Fi is not working. The guy was punching the front of the chair. He was punching the chair. The guy is looking. He said, "Excuse me, is everything okay?" "What's the Wi-Fi?" Right there, I understood safar. Right? Wi-Fi is not working. Now his real face is coming out. His tea is not hot enough. Now his real face has come out. This is who he is. This is the jerk that he is. He's not a good person. I become such a bad person. No, you are a bad person. You don't become a bad person. But now it has become apparent to you. Right? It has become now apparent to you. Right? And in one of the ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that so that it becomes to know, so that you come to know. Allah already knows. Allah wants you to know. That's why this is one of the most important things for self-reformation. My Shaykh Hafidhahullah, he said, Allah has given us this month for tazkiyatun nafs. This is the month of tazkiyah. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So that you may attain taqwa Allah, consciousness of Allah. فإن الصائم لا يفعل شيئا وإنما يترك شهوته وطعامه وشرابه من أجل معبوده فهو ترك محبوبات النفس وتلذذاتها إيثارا لمحبة الله ومرضاته وهو سر بين العبد وربه لا يطلع عليه سواه والعباد قد يطلعون منه على ترك المفطرات الظاهرة والمفترات الظاهرة وأما كونه ترك طعامه وأن كونه ترك طعامه وشرابه وشهوته من أجل معبوده فهو أمر لا يطلع عليه بشر وذلك حقيقة الصوم. So he says the people can see that you're avoiding water, people can see that you're avoiding food, right? But the fact that you are leaving for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what you are actually experiencing, this is an amr la yattali alayhi bashar. This is something that nobody will know. What is it that you are going through for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? He continues and says, وَلِلصَّوْمِ تَأْثِيرٌ عَجِيبٌ فِي حِفْظِ الْجَوَارِحِ الظَّاهِرَةِ وَالْقُوَى الْبَاطِنَةِ. And fasting has an amazing effect on the external limbs. وحميتها عن التخليط الجالب لها المواد الفاسدة التي إذا استولت عليها أفسدتها واستفراغ المواد الرديئة المانعة لها من صحتها. And then he's talking about, right, the physical benefits, how it detoxifies the body. Now the doctors are saying this. Here's Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah, I think what is a 6th century Hijri, and he's talking about this. What is it? استفراغ المواد الرديئة المانعة لها من صحتها. It purges the toxic and, right, harmful chemicals inside, harmful things inside of the body. So when you're fasting, you're actually detoxifying the body. فالصوم يحفظ على القلب والجوارح صحتها. Fasting, it not only protects you spiritually, but it is also protecting you physically. ويعيد إليها ما استلبته منها أيدي الشهوات. And it brings back the strength of the nafs, what the shahawat had taken away. فهو من أكبر العون على التقوى. And this is the best way that we can attain taqwa. وكان هدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فيه أكمل الهدي. And the way of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم was the most perfect way of fasting and attaining this. وأعظم تحصيل للمقصود وأسهله على النفوس. And it was the best way to achieve all of these things that we are saying, and it is the easiest upon the nafs. فالمقصود أن مصالح الصوم لما كانت مشهودة بالعقول السليمة والفطر المستقيمة شرعه الله لعباده رحمة بهم. So he's saying, look, when we look at all of these things, medically, physically, spiritually, and as far as character reformation, rectification, in every aspect that you look at it, you will see that fasting is nothing but beneficial. This is what he's establishing. If you look at it aqlan wa shar'an wa deenan wa tibban, from every aspect, from the perspective of tib and medicine, from the perspective of, self-reformation and strengthening your character and getting rid of bad habits, from every angle you see that fasting, subhanallah, is beneficial. And the Prophet ﷺ's method is the best of all methods. وكان من هديه صلى الله عليه وسلم, he continues, كان من هديه في شهر رمضان, from amongst the practices of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What was the prophetic method of fasting in the month of Ramadan? What was the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the month of Ramadan? Al-ikthar min anwa' al-ibadat. He says that this month is actually the month of ibadah. One person reached out to me, mashallah, he's a doctor and a headache specialist, and he works in a hospital, and he has long hours. And he said, Sheikh, I want to ask you this question. I know that fasting is, the month of Ramadan is not supposed to be, life stops in Ramadan. That's not what Muslims believe. Muslims don't believe that, you don't go to school and you don't go to work and you don't do anything and life completely stops. Rather, the Prophet ﷺ did more mujahada in this Mubarak month. So I'm thinking that I'm going to work because, life doesn't stop in Ramadan and we should continue. But at the same time, then another thought comes in my mind that I have all this, what he said, PTO, and, I could take this month off. I have all these sick days, and I was thinking that this entire month I should just dedicate. Which one is better? So I said, look, this is true that, the month of Ramadan, life doesn't stop. You don't say, I'm not going to go to school because it's Ramadan. You don't say, I'm not going to go to work because of Ramadan. But I'm asking you, do you have that option? Some people don't have that option. Some people have to work. Some people don't have that option. But I'm asking you, as a doctor, mashallah, you probably make good money, and you have the PTO. So can you take that time off? I said, yeah, without any difficulty. I said, then you should focus in your ibadah. Make this month, take your time off, and let this be a month where you dedicate yourself. Yes, a person who does not have that luxury, subhanallah, inshallah, you get double ajr. If you don't have that opportunity, you have to provide for your family. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it so easy. Also, the fast is not in the night, and also the taraweeh is something that is not fard upon you, and all of these various different things that a person can do. But if you have that luxury and that privilege that you can take the entire month of Ramadan off, we see al-iktharu min anwa'il ibadah. This was the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that it was the month of ibadah. It was a month that you fully dedicate yourself. If a person, again, he has to work, he cannot dedicate himself fully to worship, then as much as he can, maybe get the last 10 days off. Last 10 days, if not the whole month, last 10 days. But definitely we see from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, كان يشد المئزر عليه الصلاة والسلام في عشر الأواخر. كان شد مئزره وأيقظ أهله. Right? He would tie his, belt. He would tie his izar tight. He would اجتهد في العبادة وكان أيقظ أهله. He would wake up his family who might have been sleeping, and he would do extra. From this we understand it is a time of dedication. And you know what? We are in that rat race. We need, yes. We have to then, in this, have a time throughout the year. When is that time going to be? If not in the month of Ramadan, then which month? Our Shaykh says, Allah has given us this month to take a break. Allah has given us to take a break from nafs, to take a break from dunya. And the Prophet ﷺ has taught us, La rahbaniyata fil Islam. There's no rahbaniyya in Islam. Rahbaniyya means you cut off from everything. But the last 10 days was sunnah muakkada. The last 10 days is sunnah muakkada. The Prophet ﷺ never, from the time he entered into Medina Munawwara, never missed the 10 days i'tikaf. This teaches us that al-inqita' wa tabattal ilayhi tabtila. Wholeheartedly dedicate yourself to your Lord. When can we do that? When will be the time that we cut off from all of these things? When will be the time that we focus on ibadah? Hazrat Shaykh Zakaria rahimahullah, every single year, probably for 30 years, his i'tikaf routine was set in different places of the world. His i'tikaf routine was very, very known. And this became very prominent, especially amongst our mashayikh, the mashayikh of Hind. The mashayikh of Hind and Pakistan, they give a special dedication to the Ashrul Awakhir. And they make i'tikaf, and they go to different places, and they select one masjid, and they have proper i'tikaf programs. Because this is something we need. We need to sometimes cut off. But this is why the sunnah is i'tidal. Khairul umuri awsatuha. Right? And that is only 10 days, and that is in the month of Ramadan. not in any other time. If a person has the privilege and the opportunity to do that, that is the sunnah. So if not the whole month, right, then at least the last 10 days. And this was also that the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, he did this. فكان جبريل عليه الصلاة والسلام يدارسه القرآن في رمضان. Subhanallah. Jibreel alayhi salam would come in the month of Ramadan and test him and recite the Quran with him. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam would recite to Jibreel, and Jibreel would recite to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and this was mudarasa, right? He would revise, muraja'a wa mudarasa bayna Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wasallam wa Jibreel. Allahu Akbar. وكان إذا لقيه جبريل أجود بالخير من الريح المرسلة عليه الصلاة والسلام. And when Jibreel alayhi salam would come in the month of Ramadan, subhanallah, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam would be so happy that he would be more generous than a free blowing wind. Meaning he would give sadaqah and charity, and he would have jood and generosity more at that time than in any other time, because of his happiness that Sayyidina Jibreel would be his sahib and his companion. وَكَانَ أَجْوَدَ النَّاسِ وَأَجْوَدْ مَا يَكُونُ فِي رَمَضَانِ. And he was the most generous of all people, and he would be most generous in the month of Ramadan. This teaches us the second sunnah. Third sunnah, kathratul ibadah, dedicating this month for ibadah. This is the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Also, mudarasatul Quran. This is the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to dedicate this month to Quran. This is the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Also, sadaqah and jood, right? من فطر صائما كان له مثل أجره من غير أن ينقص من أجره شيء. The one who feeds a fasting person, then he gets the reward of that fasting person. Look at what the Prophet ﷺ is teaching us in this month. Jood and generosity, and to implement that is also from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ in this month. Again, it's not just a month of hunger and thirst, it's a month of generosity. And how did he teach us? فَطِّرِ الصَّائِمِ. Give someone something to make iftar. And look at what the Sahaba said. Ya Rasulullah. Yes. Just a piece of bread. He said, Ya Rasulullah, كُلُّنَا لَا نَجِدْ مَا يُفَطِّرُ بِهِ الصَّائِمِ. Every single one of us don't have the financial ability to give iftar. So what? He said, وَلَوْ مَذْقَةَ لَبَنٍ وَلَوْ شَرْبَةَ مَاءٍ. Subhanallah. Even if it's a sip of milk, and even if it's a drink of water. Because what's the objective? The objective is تعليم النفس الجود, تعليم النفس السخاء. It's not the actual money, it's the amal, right? It's to teach yourself generosity, right? Some people say, manadarum, I don't have, I'm not going to give. Okay, you take your date, break it, give half of it to this person. This is also walau بشق تمرة. وَلَوْ بِشِقِّ تَمْرَةٍ. Even if it's like a half a piece of a date, or a cup of water, or a drink of milk. It doesn't have to be, you do the masjid iftari, $1,000. Okay, I'm going to feed the entire grand iftar. People talking about grand iftar. You don't need to do grand iftar. It could be just one date. Subhanallah, there was a student, he was a poor student. He's not working. Talib al-ilm. One time he came, he said, Shaykh, I have these dates that my mom brought from Umrah, from Medina. Please break your fast with these dates. And he had like 4 or 5 dates. I said, now you're a smart guy. He heard this hadith, and then he said, Shaykh, I brought these dates. There was just 5 dates in a Ziploc bag. And he said, this benefit, exactly. He's trying to bank on the opportunity. So he brought me these 5 dates in a Ziploc bag, and he said, Shaykh, you have to make me a promise. You're going to break your fast with these dates so I can get the reward of Fatar as-Saim. I said, okay, mashallah. So that, what's the point? The point is not feeding an entire masjid, right? The importance is not $500, $1,000, and then showing the people, today, mashallah, today's iftari was brought to you by Haji Fulan Fulan. Today's iftari was sponsored by, falafel this. Today's iftari was brought to you by, sponsored by this and that. You don't need to do that, even if it's one date that you give. وكان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يكثر فيه من الصدقة والإحسان وتلاوة القرآن والصلاة والذكر والاعتكاف. These are, subhanallah, summarizing وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب. This is after the ayah of شهر رمضان in Surah Al-Baqarah, the ayah of شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. The ayah after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. When my slave asks about me, tell them that I am near. أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. I answer the call of the caller when he calls upon me. فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ. Let them hear me. Let them answer and respond to me. I will respond to them. This shows, the ulama say, that along with fasting, it's the month of Siyam, month of Quran, month of Dua. Dua. Especially at the time of Suhoor. Especially, that's a time. تَسَحَّرُوا فَإِنَّ فِي السُّحُورِ بَرَكَةً. The Prophet ﷺ said, do Suhoor, because in the Suhoor there is blessings. In the Suhoor there is barakah. What is the barakah of Suhoor? MashaAllah. Exactly. So it's not only a matter of barakah maddiya, but there's barakah ruhaniya as well. Because the time of suhoor is the time of tanazzulat al-rahmah wa sa'atul ijabah. Right? Didn't we say? Inna fil laylati sa'atan la yuwafiquha abdun muslimun yatlubu minhu khayra ad-dunya wal akhirah illa a'tahu, that Allah will give him. Allah accept 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 that Allah will give him. That sa'a is suhoor. وَفِي الْأَسْحَارِ هُمْ يَسْتَغْفِرُونَ. Subhanallah. Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَفِي الْأَسْحَارِ هُمْ يَسْتَغْفِرُونَ. And at the time of suhoor, they are making istighfar to Allah Azza wa Jal, because it's a very mubarak time. It's a time of the acceptance of dua. So yes, suhoor is a time where a person, he eats his suhoor, he eats her sehri, as we call it, and he gets strength for the day. But not only that, a lot of us forget that at the time of suhoor, we should be making dua. Suhoor is not only a time of, eating sambosas and pakoras and all the other, mashallah, but it's also a time of what? It's a time that we should be making dua. Suhoor and iftar. And iftar, the Prophet ﷺ mentions, and these are all from his sunnah, إِنَّ لِلصَّائِمِ عِنْدَ فِطْرِهِ لَدَعْوَةٌ لَا تُرَدْ. إِنَّ لِلصَّائِمِ عِنْدَ فِطْرِهِ لَدَعْوَةٌ لَا تُرَدْ. Verily, for the fasting person, at the time of iftar, Allah will give him a dua that will not be rejected. And at that time, we're like fighting, give me food. The eyes are looking for the sambosas and pakoras, and you have to, at that time, have 5 minutes, 2 minutes before the time comes in, dedicate that 5 minutes before iftar for dua. Kathratul dua. Dua for Gaza, dua for the Muslims around the world, dua for your parents, dua for your teachers, dua for the Muslims around the world. Right? It's a time of dua. So, suhoor and iftar. Right? And we've covered that, tilawatul Quran. At least a Muslim should make one khatmah in the month of Ramadan. And it's very easy, guys. One juz. One juz, for example, it has 20 pages. So if you read 4 pages after every salah, I'm making it easy, guys. 4 pages after every salah, 5 salah, 4 times 5, 20. You finish one juz each day. So easy. 4 pages is what? 10 minutes. 4 pages is what, if you read really slow, 4 pages, 20 minutes. 4 pages after Fajr, 4 pages after Dhuhr, 4 pages after Asr, 4 pages after Maghrib, 4 pages after Isha. You could do it after your iftari, after your Maghrib, after your iftari, 4 pages. At the end of one day, inshallah, you complete 20 pages. 20 pages is one juz on a 15-liner. I don't know what is it in the 13-liner. In the 15-liner, this is 20 pages. So easy. At least one khatam. And this is sunnah. The Prophet ﷺ used to dedicate himself. Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala, muhaddith al-Madinah. He was the muhaddith al-dunya, author of the Muwatta. He used to close the book of hadith, and in the month of Ramadan he said, هذا شهر القرآن. Sayyidina Imam Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala, each day he would make one khatam. Sayyidina Imam Bukhari, each day, I mean, he's a muhaddith, Amir al-Mu'mineen fil hadith. But in the month of Ramadan, هذا شهر القرآن. One khatam a day. And at the time of iftar, that would be his time of khatam. He would gather his students together, they would make dua al-khatam. So we have to also make a schedule for yourself. Make a regimen for yourself. At the time of suhoor, at the time of iftar, these are times of dua. After each prayer, 4 pages. And fasting, guarding your limbs, and giving a little bit of sadaqah every day. $2 sadaqah a day, $1 sadaqah a day. Anything that you can give. Have a little box. And in that say, okay, this is my Ramadan box. My Ramadan charity box. Put inside of that $1 a day. Or whatever. You know, it doesn't have to be a lot, but it's implementing the sunan and making the best out of this Mubarak month. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq in this Mubarak month. Inshallah that this month is coming. Allahumma sallimna Ramadan, wa sallim Ramadan lana. And Allah Azza wa Jal give us waffaqana Allahu fi hadha shahr lima yuhibbu wa yarda. Allah Ta'ala give us all tawfiq to do in this month that which pleases Him the best. And a lot of people ask me that, you know, how can we maximize? I'll tell you something. Man sama Ramadana imanan wa ihtisaba ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbih. Wa man qama Ramadana imanan wa ihtisaba ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbih. Wa man qama laylatal qadri imanan wa ihtisaba ghufira lahu ma taqaddama. 3 things. Just do 3 things. All these other things is good. All these other things is sunnah. But fast and don't ruin your fast. Man sama wa hafidha hududahu. Right? Wa tahaffadha mimma yanbaghi lahu an yatahaffadh. The one who fasts the month of Ramadan and he guards himself from the things that he should be guarding himself from. Then Allah Ta'ala will forgive all of his previous sins. غُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِن ذَنبِهِ. So fasting the month of Ramadan is the one thing. Fasting and guarding yourself in your fast, not ruining your fast, guarding your eyes and your tongue and your ears, as we said, the correct fast. Secondly, man qama Ramadana, qama Ramadan. Qiyam Ramadan is the Taraweeh. Try not to miss Qiyam Ramadan. Imagine that, subhanallah, that how many sujood we are making and how much Quran is being recited. This Qiyam of Ramadan also guarantees the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then lastly, try to get any of the odd nights, the Layali al-Qadr, the 21st, the 23rd, the 25th, all the 10 nights, they're all Mubarak. But here the Prophet ﷺ is telling us about the Sawm, about the Qiyam, and about Laylatul Qadr. These are the 3 special things that the Prophet promised forgiveness and maghfirah. The fasting, preserve your fast. Make it a fast which is a good fast, a fast that is not affected, a fast that, you're fighting and you're arguing and you're reading and you're looking at everything and anything, and it's no different than any other day of your life. No, this day should be different than any other day. This month should be different than every other month. This time should be different than every other time. إن لربكم في أيام دهركم نفحات ألا فتعرضوا لها لعله أن يصيبكم منها نفحة فلا تشقون بعده أبدا. These are the times of the nafahat al-Rabb. The special mercies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descend in this Mubarak month. My Shaykh mentioned something so amazing. He said, if you miss the fast of Ramadan, you can make it up, but you can't make up Ramadan. Ajib. You can make up the fast, but you cannot make up Ramadan. Ramadan's gone. Ramadan, you're never going to be able to make up. The fast, you can make it up. But what are you going to do with Ramadan? The tajalliyat, the rahamat, the barakat, the khairat, the blessings, the mercies, the change that comes over a person in Ramadan. Sisters, subhanAllah, in this Mubarak month who said, I'm going to wear hijab in this month. They wore hijab and they never took it off. Don't underestimate this, right? Don't say to women if they want to say, I'm going to wear hijab in this month. Oh, what's the point? You wear hijab in Ramadan and then you take it off after Ramadan. This is pointless. It's not pointless. Don't break the hearts of people. Don't discourage people. Bashiru wa la tunaffiru. If a sister says, I'm going to wear, even if she says, I'm not going to wear it after. Wallahi, I've seen so many sisters that in this month, they wore it and this month blessed them to keep it. Taqwa fi Ramadan will ensure you taqwa ba'da Ramadan. Any habit that you inculcate in the month of Ramadan, inshallah, Allah will put barakah that you will carry it through outside the month of Ramadan. And if somebody says this, don't discourage them. If somebody says, I'm going to leave this in the month of Ramadan, good, leave it. Allah Ta'ala will put tawfiq, Allah will put barakah that through the month of Ramadan a person will inshallah continue after. Even though in their mind they have the opposite intention. That's okay. Allah subhanahu to the barakah of these nights, to the barakah of Laylatul Qadr, to the barakah of this Mubarak blessed time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changes the hearts. A person themselves will feel guilty to themselves and say, you know what, I'm going to continue this. This was so easy. I could do it in this month. Why can I not do it outside of this month? And the month of Ramadan shows us what we are capable of. The month of Ramadan shows us that we can wake up for suhoor, that we can wake up for tahajjud. The month of Ramadan shows us that it's humanly possible. What happens in the month of Ramadan? You become like superhuman? You're a mutant? What are you? You're the same person. But it shows you that when you make himmah, look at the things that you're able to achieve. So if you can do it now, you're the same human being. You're not a robot. It wasn't someone else doing it. It was you. The barakat doesn't change you to something else. Barakah doesn't make you another human. You are the same human. It's just a blessing. It's just that himmah that comes inside of you. That means that if you could do it here, you are the same human being that can do it outside the month of Ramadan as well. Keep that in mind. May Allah give us tawfiq, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give everybody salamat and afiyah, and give us good health, and give us that ability and tawfiq to make the siyam and to make the qiyam and to guard ourselves in the best manner and dedicate and devote ourselves in the best manner. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.